We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cage My IQ. I'm your host, D-Bake. I will be recapping Bellator 259, which was main evented by Chris Cyborg versus Leslie Smith 2. This was kind of a boring fight card and all. I thought the prelims were a little bit better, but we had a bunch of decisions on the main card except for the last fight, which ended 10 seconds before the fight would have went the distance. But let's get started with the sponsor that we have today, which is, once again, we are partnered with 99 Jersey. If you don't already know, we are now partnered with 99 Jersey, the number one shop of boutique sportswear in the U.S. Whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, 99 Jersey has you covered. Use promo code SportsBoxShow20 at checkout to get 20% off your next purchase. And don't forget to let them know we sent you. Once again, go to 99jersey.com and use promo code SportsBoxShow20 at checkout. Be the first to rep your team. Whether you like the Mighty Ducks, you like the Toon Squad for Space Jam, or if you like a specific team in the sport that you like, 99 Jersey is the place to go. So go to www.99jersey.com and use the promo code right there to receive 20% off your next purchase. Let's get into the first fight that we have on the card, which was a women's flyweight matchup, which pitted Hannah Guy against Valerie Loreda, in which Hannah Guy defeated Valerie Loreda by unanimous decision. The first round basically went Valerie Loreda's way for the most part. She was landing a lot of shots on Hannah Guy. Hannah Guy did take her down once or twice in the first round. But for me, Loreda did a lot of production in that first round, and she took it. But then she did get tired towards the end, and I think it affected her the rest of the way because once round two started, I had Hannah Guy from their point on. She took her down several times each round. She controlled the pace. She avoided several shots by Loreda. And each time, I thought Hannah Guy was going to finish Loreda, but then Loreda would sneak out and last a little bit longer, and then the fight went to decision. But if you look at the stats right here, you had Valerie Loreda, who had 72 total strikes, 62 punches, 9 were kicks, one was a knee, compared to Hannah Guy, who had total strikes 106. She had 88 punches, 5 elbows, 2 kicks, 11 knees. She had 8 takedowns and 4 submission attempts. So the production was on Hannah Guy's side, and that's why she scored the 2 rounds to 1 unanimous decision victory over Valerie Loreda. I think if Valerie Loreda would have been more active in the second round, she might have been able to steal this win 2 rounds to 1. But in round 2, she just didn't do enough, and Hannah Guy was able to flip the switch there and then get more production and take this fight away, in which she was the plus 400 underdog in this matchup. Moving on to the second fight on the fight card, we had a matchup between a welterweight matchup between Jaleel Willis, who defeated Macon Mandanka by unanimous decision. This was basically a boring fight in itself. We saw Jaleel Willis take down Macon many times, and then Macon did do a lot of striking, but not a lot of it was effective. It was light striking. He landed a couple knees. He landed a couple elbows. But it just didn't seem like his striking was on point, and whenever he landed something, it didn't do anything to Willis, and Willis would just take him down and control the action on the ground, land some shots on the ground, and just won a born fight in itself. If you look at the stats to support my claim, you had Jaleel Willis, who had 72 total strikes, 59 punches. He landed no elbows. He had 13 kicks, landed no knees. He had 8 takedowns and 0 submissions, whereas Macon had 94 total strikes, 47 punches, 3 elbows, 38 kicks. He landed a lot of kicks, 6 knees and 1 takedown, but it was the 8 takedowns by Jaleel Willis that sealed the victory for him in this matchup. He did land less strikes than Macon because of those 38 kicks, the 13 kicks, but overall, the overall product, it was Jaleel Willis all day over Macon, because whenever Willis did something, he was more effective, especially with the huge takedown difference. Like I said before, 8-1. You're not going to win if you're getting taken down 8 times. Even if you have 20 more strikes total than your opponent, you're just not going to win, because those takedowns are worth a little bit, are worth more in that big difference than just having 20 more strikes than your opponent. So Jaleel Willis wins by unanimous decision over Macon Mandonka. In the third fight on the card, we had a middleweight matchup between Austin Vanderford, who defeated Fabian Edwards by unanimous decision. This was Paige Van Zandt's husband going up against Leon Edwards' brother, and this was a little bit of disappointing because I expected more out of Fabian Edwards, but Austin Vanderford did what he usually does, and that is he took his opponent down, threw him down, got a little bit of ground and pound, and then his opponent, as always, gets up, but then didn't do as much until the end. Fabian Edwards just looked lost in this fight. He did defend the takedown several times, but it was just the fight was on the ground majority of the time. Vanderford landed strikes when he was on the ground. Edwards would get up after a little while, and then it would just be another reset for the first 2 rounds. The big thing to see, though, and to be happy with Fabian Edwards, was the last minute of the fight where he landed a lot of lethal hits on Austin Vanderford and made Vanderford bleed, as you see in the picture in front of you. He was bleeding bad at the end of the fight, but at that point, Vanderford had already won the first 2 rounds. So unless Edwards would have finished him, he had the fight in the bag already. But if you look at the stats right here, we had Austin Vanderford landed 53 total strikes, 43 were punches, 6 were elbows, 4 were kicks, no knees. He had 8 takedowns, 0 submissions, whereas Edwards also had 53 total strikes, 32 were punches, 6 were elbows, 14 were kicks, 1 were knees, but he had no takedowns. So it was the takedowns that were the big thing in the first 2 rounds for Vanderford, and I think it was 4 of 8 takedowns, to correct myself. But still then, with them having the same amount of strikes, and the only difference here in this matchup was the takedowns, you got to give Vanderford the credit for doing what he does best, and that's his wrestling and taking his opponent down, because I expected more defense from Fabian Edwards, and that just didn't happen in this fight, and Vanderford was able to squeak away with the 2 rounds, the 1 victory on majority of the score cards, and he improves to 11-0 in his MMA career, and likely will get a really good matchup next time, and possibly move 1 inch closer to getting a title shot in that division. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, which was almost a shocker in itself. It was a featherweight rematch, which saw Leandro Higo defeat Darian Caldwell by split decision. This was a very entertaining fight for the fact that in the first fight, Darian Caldwell made Leandro Higo tap in 2 minutes by submission, and then you saw Caldwell move up to the Grand Prix in the weight class above, and then he lost by guillotine choke to AJ McKee, which brought himself back down to the division to try and reconquer it. But Higo was on a 2-fight win streak, comes into this. The first round was all Darian Caldwell. He was able to take down Higo, and then he landed 10 really crisp elbows to Higo, which made him bleed a little bit. Not as bad as Austin Vanderford, but he was bleeding. But then after that, it kind of switched. In the second round, Caldwell would take him down once or twice more, but I think the moment that this fight changed was when Higo swept Darian Caldwell's legs from under him and took him down with the leg sweep, and then started just laying shots on him. Caldwell would get back up, get into mount on Higo, but then he would switch it up, and he was landing shots from under Caldwell, while Caldwell was just laying on him, not doing too much damage. And then Higo would have a few submission attempts going in the second round, which I think those shots and then the leg sweep sneaked out the second round for Higo. And then in the third round, it was all Higo. He was landing strikes. He was getting to Caldwell. He took him down. He tried for the guillotine, and then he tried for another arm submission, but didn't get any of that. But then he was landing shots still. He's landing shots little by little. And then Caldwell had a little bit of surge at the end, but I gave the third round to Higo. And then 2 of the 3 judges sided the same way as I did, where they gave it 29-28 Higo, whereas the third judge gave it 29-28 Caldwell. But I just thought the second round was a little bit more towards Higo. Like, I can see going either way, but I inched closer to Higo in this matchup, in which you see the scorecard right here. Caldwell had 55 total strikes, 28 punches thrown, 28 of 16, 12 of 10 elbows, 12 of 1 kicks, 3 of 2 knees, and then he had 3 of 1 takedowns, whereas Higo had 76 total strikes, 52 punches, 14 elbows, 7 kicks, 3 knees, 1 takedown, and 1 submission attempt. So as you look right here, even though Caldwell had those 3 takedowns, they were several of those were in the first round. So if this was a 1 championship fight, you might have went Caldwell's way in this matchup, but because it was a Bellator style where they go round by round, he took the first round, and then the second round, I think he had one, but then Higo did more striking damage in the second round on his back and on his feet. And then the third round, that's when Higo got his, and then he did more striking. So that's where the lines blur with the takedowns to striking a differential, but you still give it to Higo because he did more overall on a scale of things than Caldwell. It just doesn't look that way because Caldwell controlled a little bit more time in the first round. Like that was his no matter what. The third round was Higo's no matter what, and then the second round was what made it a split decision. You could have went either way with it, but because I think the volume in the second round for Higo, that's why he wins this. He gets his revenge, and then he moves ahead of Caldwell in the division. Moving on to the main event of the evening, which was the 5-round featherweight championship fight between Chris Cyborg versus Leslie Smith. We had Chris Cyborg, the champion, retain her championship by defeating Leslie Smith by TKO in round 5 with 10 seconds left to go in the fight. This was just a murder victory by Chris Cyborg. She had her way all fight against Leslie Smith. This was more of a complete performance by Chris Cyborg. Usually you see her knock her opponent out and go power hungry in the first couple rounds and win the fight by knockout, or she starts to get a little bit tired. But in this fight, she was landing the power shots, but she was more composed. She was more patient, and then she was landed shots, but she wasn't overdoing it. And then she even took down Leslie Smith a bunch of times and landed shots on the ground. Leslie Smith, I give Leslie Smith all the credit in the world for withstanding all the punishment that she did, and she was crazy for doing that, but she's tough. She's very tough, but then her striking is just not on point, nowhere near Chris Cyborg. Leslie Smith should have stuck more towards the grappling and submissions, but for some reason she stood up and traded with the Chris Cyborg, which was just beyond me. But all in all, Chris Cyborg basically won all 4 of the first rounds, and then she was even winning the 5th round. So it didn't matter if it went to decision or it went with this knockout or not, because Chris Cyborg was going to win no matter what. But if you want to look at the damage that Chris Cyborg did, here's the stat chart for you. Chris Cyborg landed a monstrous 337 total strikes, 270 were punches, 4 were elbows. She landed 59 kicks, 4 knees. She had 7 of 7 takedowns with 0 submissions, whereas Leslie Smith landed 172 total strikes, 123 were punches, 0 elbows, 48 kicks, 1 knee, and 2 takedowns. So, yes, Leslie Smith did land over 172 strikes, but it was just not for anything. They're light hits, light punches that didn't do any damage to Chris Cyborg, whereas Chris Cyborg, whenever she landed something, it did a lot of damage to Smith. And like I said before, more props to Leslie Smith for taking the punishment, but she had no business being in this ring, in this octagon with Chris Cyborg. And now at the end of the day, we gotta see what's next for Cyborg. Is she going to sit and wait? Are we going to say Kayla Harrison wins the PFL tournament? Will Bellator go all out and trying to sign her so they can put her up right away against Chris Cyborg? Or are we going to see the Kat Zingano get a title shot now, since that was one of the reasons why they signed her, because they wanted to pin her up against Cyborg in the future. So we could see that, but this was a great showing by the 16-year MMA pro legend Chris Cyborg, where she dominated Leslie Smith and retained her women's featherweight championship. That'll wrap up this Bellator 259 edition recap of Cage My IQ. Once again, we're Cage My IQ, the best place for MMA content. I'm your host, Daniel Bakley, and you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, in which I would ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Cage My IQ. That's where all of our content is stored, all of our preview and recap videos, plus our interviews that we've done. And we've got all of our content there. So if you miss any of the action, you can just go to our YouTube page and get the recap from me. Or if you want to see what all the fights are about and see who you need to pick before the fight happens, just watch one of our preview videos to get an idea of who we think is going to win. But as always, I'm your host, D-Bake. This was the Bellator 259 recap show, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you for watching this episode of Cage My IQ on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.